Right then, just making yourself comfortable in the chair. I just realised I need to speak about myself. Just a little bit forwards. Be careful of your back if you do this. But what we're looking for is you get the support from feet and hips. Hips, of course, carrying the majority of the weight, but just a slight tilt forwards so that your head comes more into the space created between the feet and your hips, more or less a square or square type shape with the feet and hips at the corners. And just take a couple of slow, gentle breaths, rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. And then over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, then your arm. The other side. Your arm. And the upper part of your chest. Nice and light on your belly. And vibrate the next. Okay, now, 2 feet out, drop back into the chair, almost like you're sitting on a deck chair or sort of a lounger or something like that. Using this posture to help you recall this feeling of just allowing yourself to sink into the chair. Can be surprisingly difficult with the habits that we often carry of sort of tightness and stiffness. You can easily find yourself sitting back in a chair like this and yet maybe holding your fingers tight or tightening your shoulders. Gradually, we want to sort of erode away those habits. And let's just do this little exercise of tightening and releasing. Just a reminder, this is not meant to be a strong exercise. It's not about how much you tighten. What we're looking for is what happens when we release. So just very gently around your chest and your ribs and your shoulders, upper back, sort of pull in, tighten up, and then try and release quite slowly. So you've got time to just observe and feel what's going on. That sense of feeling a bit heavier in the chair as you release. And a feeling of a movement, a flowing movement inward and downward. When you've done that a few times, do the same thing around the middle part of your body. So lower back, hips, belly, buttocks, and then your thighs into your knees. They always seem to be very connected, just tightening and releasing. And again, with the releasing feeling, the sense of sinking downwards, but also inwards. And maybe just noticing that when you tighten in the middle of the body, probably find that you're tightening in your shoulders again. So this is really the key area. And it's this area, when we talk about rooting down, It's this area that we want to feel is dropping towards the ground, or in this case, towards the chair. And so this becomes the process of rooting down, that releasing feeling that we look for. And when we come to the upright posture, particularly the standing, we'll look again at how that works, what it requires to allow it to work. Coming up, once again, I'm going through the whole process again. Posture is always going to be a definitive factor here. If I'm sitting here in the chair like this, but leant over like this, I can tighten in my ribdom, and when I soften, I'm just going to fall out the chair, which is not the idea. So thinking about how your body is aligned, again, that support from your feet and your knee, your hips. The weight of your body coming forward, so that rather than feeling that you're sitting right back on the edge of the chair, with this feeling that you might fall backwards, you brought yourself forwards a little bit, just the pelvis tilt. And again, just tightening and releasing a few times. And just noticing which parts of your body respond to the releasing, which don't. So then just again, this feeling of settling, supported by feet and hips, front of your upper body, supported by your back, and all through your body, this deeper sense of support and connection in and around the area of your skeleton. Now just slowly begin to turn your head. So having come into this posture and become more familiar with its qualities, we look to maintain them as we begin to move. And the shoulders. And so what we might want to do is to apply that releasing idea, that letting go, as well as movement, when the movement seems to be blocked, this tightness there, sometimes we're able to just, through that awareness of releasing and what it feels like, create a little bit more space for movement. And then going forwards. Your hands come down to your sides, hands out just a little bit, rotating your arms. Try to maintain the focus of your attention. So as you go through these very simple movements, you may well discover other aspects to them that you didn't realize were there, changes in your chest, your upper back, your sides. And then raising your hands, winding around, so you're winding up thin thread of cotton or something. Silk would be the classic image here, silk thread. Go back the other way. Okay. Now, when you've settled in your hips, tilt forwards, tilt your pelvis forwards. So your weight moving a little bit more into your feet, and then a gentle push back and a bit of a pull from your hips as well. Coming back to the upright position. Still trying to keep your head, your weight within that space defined by your feet and your hips. So I can go to here, a lot of weight in my legs. I can feel the support from my shoulders. As soon as I start to go out here, then my weight's starting to pull me forward. Coming back, my hips drop back into the chair. The head and the shoulders follow up. Let's talk about here. While we go to here, then again, there's still that feeling of falling backwards. So trying to be clear, trying to be precise about the weight transfer. Next time you go forwards, before you do, just turn a little bit in the center of your body so you now redirect. So bringing in that central part of your body as the so one way you could describe it actually almost like you're driving the car, like the steering wheel. The intention comes from the driver, of course. The power comes from the engine, but the direction is given through these rotating movements around the center. Change direction. So when we want to make some kind of change, be it from one exercise or to another, from part of one exercise to another, we make that change through the central part of the body. So we keep the center being centered and being rooted right the way through. And then circling around. Trying to feel that your spine is quite comfortable with this. And again, recognizing you're too far in one direction or another. Because gravity will just take over. Coming back to the central position. And then just pulling one heel up, step out, put your heel down, lower your toes, press in gently, planting your foot and pull back. Measure your step so that you can still apply that bit of downward pressure. And then on the other side. One more time. Okay. So now, coming back to this original position, bringing your arms back into the movements, combining some of those movements that we've already done. Weight back in your hips, turn your hands palm forwards. Give yourself a little bit of a push forward, and as you move, rotating your arm and then back. The bird folds its wings. Feel how your chest and your upper back very subtly open and close, expand and contract with the movement. And that means that we're starting to engage the various tissues in the air, the muscles and tendons and ligaments and so on. And then from the forward position, hands facing back, changing into fisherman castanet. Don't try lifting your arms. What will move your arms is the movement of your weight and the change in the orientation of the upper part of your body. But also, again, recognizing the sort of neighboring movement, expansion, saying your side or through your shoulder or through your arm. The fisherman castanet. This time when you go forwards, imagine there's a ball underneath your arms, and as you come back, don't lift your arms, but rather just use that movement in your body. Slide your hands over the ball, or as the name suggests, to roll the ball in. So rather than lifting here, you'll come back and you'll keep your arms in contact with the ball as much as you can. One more time. As you come back this time, turning your hands palm in, your chest opening for the pigeon spreads its wings. As you go forwards, that opening now is in your back. So this sort of wave-like flow of movement from front to back. One more time. Next movement, similar in some ways, but your hands stay in front of your hips, but still a very subtle expansion and contraction in chest and upper back. And as we become more aware of these subtle changes within the body, so they seem to amplify. And in the end, they're going to be the movements that build into the bigger movements rather than the other way around, which is how we're discovering them at the moment. So pushing wave. And this feeling of movement from your hips up through your back is a little bit like a wave flowing upwards and expanding out to the front of your body. One more time again. Next movement, there's no curving up. You bring your hands down just above, a little bit above your legs. Rotating your arms as you come at the back, rotating as you go forward. From the side, I can do one, but I come back, see where my elbow rests. Everything else seems to get sort of bunched up. And then as I go forward, it releases like a spring release. Now we can start to get a better sense for those subtle movements and the very subtle differences from one movement to another. We do them in a little sequence. So this time coming forwards and open your fingers, turn your hand palm out and then in and pull back. Pigeon spreads its wings. Coming forwards and then change to double-handed push. And then coming back and punch with both fists. So just bringing them in together as a little sequence can help us to become more familiar with what's similar about the movements, like for instance, the simple transfer of your weight. What changes? Where do we feel those patterns of expansion and contraction? When you've done this before, you can sometimes come in with a set idea, it's going to be this, but it isn't necessarily. So keep a bit of an open mind here. Last time. Turning your hands palm out, opening your fingers again. This time, keep your hands turned palm out, wind it out and back. There's a bigger movement in your chest. And press forward. So we practice becoming aware of small changes and small movements within our bodies. And we begin to notice these in all the movements. Again, they're not necessarily consistent. But the ones that are, we begin to associate with particular movements. The opening of the chest is often associated with arms moving out, for instance, with a contraction in the upper back. And then awareness of what's happening on a very subtle level within our body, physically and energetically. Becomes more with intention. We can build the movements from within the body. This is one of the meanings when we apply the term internal art. Tai Chi and Qigong are described as internal art. Now turning your hands palm down, turn slightly to your left, ease and forward. Just a nice smooth circle, bringing yourself back to the center. Turning the other way, first polishing the table. Very gently, don't overextend your arms. One more round. Turn your hands palm up. And then the gentle press down through feet and hips together. Feel that expansion up through your body, particularly through your back and the contraction. And now your upper body expanding, and that expansion pushing your arms up like a wave coming up underneath them. Likewise, the contraction drawing them down. One of the significant things in this exercise is, although obviously the upper body we're expanding upwards, we're expanding outwards, an important element of it is the movement downwards through your hips and ultimately your feet. It's the name of the exercise, rooting down. That's really the start of the process that leads to the expansion that you're watching. We describe these as counterbalancing movements. Now change into the wild goose. Turn your hands out. Very similar to the last exercise, still using your feet and your hips. And then as your hands come down this time, ease forwards a little bit, giving just enough space to let your hands cross in front of your knees. Sit back, sink into the hips and then expand. So parting the clouds. To exaggerate what I've just said, I go forwards. I'm going further forward, but that allows my hand to come in front of my knee. My hips go back. You can see, again, bear in mind this is exaggerated. You can see how that's going to move my shoulders and my arm. And as I reach that rear position, the expansion up through the front of my body will move my arm. And then the whole process, the whole cycle repeats. Feeling what happens within your body to sort of get that sense of your arm being pushed up. Again, there can be a sort of feeling of an almost wave-like quality of movement. And we want to apply that with the next movement, letting your hands drop all the way down, feeling the weight of your arms hanging from the shoulders, and then feeling that wave-like movement up through one side. At the top of the movement, just roll your fingers in gently, rotate your arm and pull down. Just dragon plucks the stars from the sky. On the other side. And draw down. Okay. Don't rush the changeover from one side to another. Makes it too much of a frantic exercise if you do that. So what you might want to do here, you let your hand come down, fingers unwind, and sort of shift your attention across, like you're looking around the room, but inside, and then through the expansion and the contraction. Do one more on each side. Now, bringing both hands back into the movement, pushing in two directions, starting with your hands in your center, and then lengthening through your back and your spine, feeling your arms being pushed up just a little above your head and in front of you, and then down to the original position. Start the whole process all over again, the expansion in the center of your body. This time, directing your hands out. So pushing in two directions. This should give you a bit of an opportunity to notice any distinction between two movements, one upwards, one sideways. Then this time, when you push out, when your hands get to this position, just turn a little bit in the center of your body. Notice how that changes the direction of the push out. And then come back. Turning around the center line of your body. Don't overdo the turn. Turn the other way. And back. And then finish with an upward push. So now we have four directions, starting with the upward movement. The middle two are the sideways push with the adjustment through the center of your body. Do one more round. Pushing out. Now this time as you push out, one foot out, knees still a bit bent, heel resting on the floor. Turn your hand palm forwards. Ease forwards, feel the lengthening through the spine, but hips dropping back. And they will eventually pull you back up. Slight contraction in your back, opening in the front. Really to this upright position. In the side. Again, I'll exaggerate. It's like somebody takes hold of the top of my trousers and from here, pulls me back into the chair. My shoulders come up quite naturally in those circumstances. Maybe a little bit of a push from the other foot as well. One more. Inside. Now this time, when you come back, your hands come down, roll your fingers into a hollow fist. Go forward, have the feeling of your head moving upwards diagonally, back just lengthens a little bit, and that draws your hands over into the movement, grasping the tiger's ears. Again, I'll show you from the side, and again, I'll exaggerate. I go forward, you see how my hand's behind, the chest is open, so the weight has gone forwards, chest is open, all those muscles are extended, ready to use, and so they contract and they bring their hand over. Not straining in the shoulder or arm. Again, I would emphasize on these are all very, very subtle things. I'm emphasizing them to show how it's not just about one part of your body. When one part of your body is in motion, we're told the whole body is in motion. One more time. Try that on the other side. So, going forwards, it's almost as though your sternum, the breastbone, draws back a little bit. Remember, your rib cage is quite soft compared to some other parts of the skeleton, quite supple. With all these tissues and muscles around and in between your ribs. One more time. Good. Bring it back. So when we make a movement, be it something more complex or be it as simple as just that rotation of the arms that we did at the beginning, there's always somehow seems to be other parts of the body engaged, following a basic pattern of expansion and contraction. Remember, when a muscle expands, like pulling out an elastic band, it's going to contract again. So, you know, this is a very natural process, but registered on a very subtle level, and on a level where our intention, be that intention through an image or through a direct instruction, or for many of you, a memory. Oh yes, I've experienced this before. This is how it feels. All of these things can begin to exert an influence from these very, very small changes within the body. And the more we do that, somehow it seems the more we become aware of those subtle connections. And we realize that really all the movements that we make are this conglomerates. If I get a pack of cards and I build a house out of it or something like that, or maybe I lean them against each other. They all have a role to play, some more than others, of course, so it's not an equal system. But so when we've got that option of building on the simpler movements, we can start to bring about an influence on the movement, both the mechanical movement, but also the flow of the energy within the body. So mind is and awareness is a very key element in these arts. That's quite a challenging feeling. Okay, so now this time, hold your hands over your chest. Push out with your left hand. Draw back as though you're drawing a bow with the right hand. You can either have your elbow going out to your side or just tucking under a little bit. You'll have your chest open, and then the chest contracts, drawing your hand across. The back opens. You bring your hands to the middle and you start again. If possible, if you can do so without straining, you watch your hand as it moves away. And across, it's called the archer for obvious reasons. And although the main focus of attention is going to be in your chest and upper back, as you draw the bow, where else do you notice any kind of sense of opening or expansion? So when the arrow leaves the bow, as sometimes described, there's a great deal of impetus, a great deal of movement, a great deal of energy involved in this. And likewise here, the other way around. As the archer do one more on each side. And just rest for a moment. Once again, rubbing your hands together, the prelude to those tapping exercises, using these as a way of just sort of waking us up a little bit before we stand up, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. And then the shoulder and arm again. And then the other side. Up past your chest. Light on your belly. And once again, finally your legs. And then just work on your legs still, pushing your heels up. And then circling your knees around, feeling the movement in your shoulder joint. Your hip joint, I beg your pardon, it's the hips moving. And then back the other way. If you want to, standing. So the standing posture that we look for is slightly different to the seated posture. We don't want to tilt forward in most circumstances. What we want is to find a clear passage for gravity from the crown of our head down into our feet. So for instance, if I get this pole, in practice it's very difficult because it's not a flat floor, flat floor. This is probably a bit out at the bottom. But in theory, I could find a position for the pole where it wouldn't fall over, but rather gravity would pull it straight down. In practice, of course, that's very, very difficult. And in practice, if we're going to try and do that, if say you put a tent up and it's got a central pole, or maybe you're erecting a washing line or a rotary dryer or something like that, some kind of pole going in to the ground. In the case of the tent, we use guy ropes and so on to support that pole. In the case of the washing line, we dig a hole and put it down into the ground and maybe concrete it in. And in a sense, we do both with Tai Chi. Muscles, tendons, ligaments, fascia, could all be seen as being a bit like the guy ropes and the skin of the tent. And we look to drop our weight. So these different elements feed off each other. It's hard to root down if you're out of line. On the other hand, if you can come into line, it's easier to root down. There's something to kind of approach from different points. Feet are hip width apart and just rocking your weight forwards and backwards. So this is an exercise I do frequently and generally find it's a little bit different each time. If we go too far, then this is going to happen. So the first thing to do is to moderate how far you're moving. And in practice, that will mean your weight goes forwards till the majority of your weight is resting through the balls of your feet. And when you go back, more like the front part of your heel. And then what we're looking for, and again, let me show you with the pole, if this is the center line of your body, it's doing this. So somewhere there's that theoretical central point. And we're seeing how close we can get to that. You may have, if you've done this before, have an idea of where that could be, but it's not necessarily going to be there today because I said that it's very subtle. And because of the number of factors affecting it, it can change almost from sort of moment to moment. And next time you bring your weight forwards, come to rest just behind the ball of each foot. Look for that releasing feeling again in hips, lower back, buttocks. Drop down. Yeah, so you come forwards and then drop down. So now you change from the horizontal movement to the vertical movement. Try not to let your knees push forwards like this. That will have you forwards, or you're straining in your knees. You're sitting back and it will be very strong in your thigh muscles. Once again, your body expanding and contracting and bringing your hands around the standing version of rooting down, pushing the ball up and pressing down. Now at the bottom of the movement here, turn your hands out, going into the wild goose. And at the bottom of the movement here, let your hands drop all the way down, cross in front of your belly, push up into part in the clouds. And again, just taking a bit of time to observe the changes between the movements, going back to rooting down, observing what is similar, but also what is different. You know, each movement obviously has a strong relationship to every other movement, the pattern of movement, the principles of the movements. But also each movement will have its own particular sort of internal resonances. And we begin to understand and be able to work with this relationship between what's happening within the body, the influence that our minds can have on that, and the external movement. One more round. Okay, now put 1 foot forward, turn 1 foot out a little bit, step straight forward with the other foot, and begin to transfer the weight this time from front to back. 1 foot to another, rather than as we're doing in the chair, from feet to hips. So the awareness that we bring to the movements can make a significant difference. We've learned movements to change quite profoundly with when a different image or a different idea has been applied to them. For instance, what we may find with this one is weight's getting stuck. It's if you probably your knee or something like that, can feel quite difficult to let the weight go there. But we refer to this sometimes as filling and emptying. If you can imagine, if you get a glass and you pour water into it, the water doesn't sort of trickle down and kind of go, oh, I'm not too sure about that, and so on and so forth. It drops to the bottom and fills up. And if that's a useful image to you, it might not be, but if it is a useful image, it can change what you're trying to achieve. It can change your intention for this movement, rather than thinking, oh, I've got to think about my knee. I'm not suggesting you ignore the knee, but you're also thinking that you want to feel the pressure of the weight, first of all, not in your hip, not in your knee, but the sole of your foot. So the water would drop down to the bottom of the glass and then filling upwards. And that can give you quite a different kind of feel. Just one example, not necessarily going to work here in that way, but the potential is there. When you go back, raising your toes and your heel, turn the front foot out just a little bit, and raising your hip. And as you do this, a little bit more of your weight goes into each leg. Again, very careful with your areas like your knees, hips, until you feel that the vast majority of your weight is settling down through the supporting leg. And then just carefully bring the other foot in, push back out, plant the foot down, and move back. Looking to get that sense of alignment and root, what we call central equilibrium over one leg. Don't think in terms of balancing. Sink down, root down. Take your time. Try that with the other foot forwards. Filling and emptying. Then beginning to raise your toes and your heel. Stepping in. Again, just think about that image of the center line or whatever helps you maintain your alignment, your root, your central equilibrium. And just take a few steps through. You'll have the odd wobble, and this is where we learn to apply that quality of releasing some. Change direction now. You might want to sort of practice this next to a wall or something like that. But if I can, if I get to here and I'm like, oh, I'm a bit wobbly, if I can apply some, I can root down again. So remember that sort of tightening and releasing exercise we did at the beginning. Okay, now have your right foot forwards. Move your weight into your back foot. Turn to your left. You use that movement to swing your arms over in a circle, coming forwards and bringing the hands down to your hips. Push the back knee forwards, bring the rear foot in, you're going forwards, step and move forwards. It's almost like you're paddling a canoe. You get to here, you place the foot there, it's like you're pushing the water back. The arms moving in a figure of eight movement. Try a few of those going back. The canoe paddling doesn't really work for this. Think about the figure of eight, or some people like to think about the infinity sign used in maths and physics. And then, once again, it's not vital to raise your foot up. If it's comfortable, you can do so without disrupting the alignment of your body, then fine, but don't worry if you can't. And then going back. One more time. And okay, go back to your chair. So all these different elements of alignment, of rooting, of releasing, so on, and central equilibrium, and so on and so forth, are really just different ways of looking at the whole exercise. None of them exists in isolation. None of them exist on its own. Which we choose to focus on at any particular time depends on the circumstances. In this last exercise, I'm coming back to this idea of releasing, and when and how we do that. What does that feel like? I said, you know, if you're on one leg and you feel as though you're wobbling around, can you release? And this is a very essential process in Tai Chi. Really, it's a process that we want to have with this consistently. It comes and it goes in practice. And just let your hands drop down. So this is embrace tiger, return to mountain. You push out. Probably at some point you'll begin to stiffen up, and that's when we apply the releasing. We feel ourselves drawn back and settling down. The mountain being this lovely image that we use sometimes for central equilibrium. That's useful to you. So make use of this time at this point just to notice what it is that brings you back to the mountain, whether it's some kind of image, physical nature, some sensation in your body, combination of those, because that's what's going to be useful to you later. So body, mind, and movement, body, mind, and energy, really all working as one. One more time. And then rest. Okay, just open. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for watching and joining in as always. And as always, if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me or contact me somehow, and I'll do my best to answer.